Welcome to Angel Impact, the official podcast of the Wisconsin River Business Angels. Episode 16, What Leon Learned in Japan. Hi, my name is Aaron Marks, and I'm here with this next episode of Angel Impact. Angel Impact is the official podcast of the Wisconsin River Business Angels, and the Wisconsin River Business Angels is Central Wisconsin's only angel investment group. And usually I'm here with the leadership team of the Wisconsin River Business Angels, which is Jeff Ebel and Leon Ostrowski. But today I'm just here with Leon, who's the chair. How are you today, Leon?
I'm doing just fine. Just
Good.
fine. Thanks, Aaron.
And the reason it's just Leon is because we're going to talk about his specific story and what that journey has given to him and what he brings to the Wisconsin River Business Angels. So you've had actually a very interesting career, Leon. How many countries have you worked in?
I've worked in extended time periods in Japan and in Europe, Brussels, Belgium, for 3 years. And we lived in that environment in Japan, probably about a little over half a year.
Okay. So that's Belgium and Japan, and then I guess the United States, right?
Correct. Most of my career is in the United States.
Okay.
But also traveled the world for the company and involving and installing new business management systems, specifically marketing systems around the globe for the company. So those would be shorter stays, anywhere from 1 to 2 to 3 weeks.
Okay, yeah. So extended time in the United States, Belgium, and Japan, but shorter stints in. I mean, do you even have an estimate as to how many countries you've done that in?
Well, let's put it this way.
Yeah.
In the working condition, I've been to most parts of the world where the company has manufacturing and sales facilities, and that would be in the 20s to 30s.
Yeah.
But then in addition, when we were younger, my wife and I took a lot of cruises in different parts of the world where we would get on a cruise ship and spend anywhere from 1 week to 6 weeks on a cruise ship with extended stays and participating in a lot of these countries and differences among different people around the world. So
so Leon has just all this experience working around the world and starting new divisions and figuring out how to market products in basically different cultures. And I always love hearing Leon tell stories about this for the insights that it's shown him. And I think one of the most interesting stories, the most interesting stories, come from your time in Japan. Although the story is going to be similar for all these places, because basically, like you said, you learned to basically value like they value. Both in terms of cultures and emotions, and then translating that into monetary value. Is that about right?
That's true. And what's interesting, in Japan, we have a silicone caulk that we sell in the United States for bathtub caulks and windows, and it's that rubbery material that seals the tub from the wall so you don't get leakage back there.
Right.
And that product is a pretty standard product. It's used very successfully in the US, it's very successfully in Europe. But when we went to apply it in Japan, in Europe, in Asia, the product did not sell at all. And we were trying to understand why. And it came back to culture was the reason why it did not sell there. And if you use that product in the United States and put it on, it's got an acetic acid odor to people here, and it behaved very similar in Europe. That was a clean odor. That's put into water for your cleaning solutions, and you feel something is clean when you have that smell.
And that's vinegar. We know that as vinegar, right?
Yes. And then you get that same smell in Japan, and they says, "Oh, that's terrible." Well, what do you mean? It smells like dead fish. And they would not use it because of that smell.
Right.
So there's a case where your product just would not sell, and you had to change something. And what we changed was the curing system, so there was no odor released. Then the product took off, and it was performing the same function of sealing.
Yeah.
What I discovered there, and what I also discovered in US, when we have a new concept we want to sell, a new business, don't expect the marketplace to understand your product by talking about it one time or putting one piece of literature out there. What I found in the United States, which is my home culture, my home language, people understand one another a lot quicker. So what I found is I had to talk about something 3 different times
Mm.
in order for people to understand it. The first time was just getting a concept across. What is it? And a lot of the details go over the individual's head and they don't really grasp it. The second one is to then apply that concept with a specific example. You got to see this product or this service in the same way where it's relating to some world example out there, that it relates to somebody with that need. And so that sort of says, aha, now I can start seeing how this applies to that customer, but they still don't see how it applies to themselves. And that's the third exposure to this concept. They've got to apply this and they got to have your help in their circumstances and their environment. And that's with the common language. And when I went to, so 3 times to get this concept understood just on the front end. So then you go to Europe. What I found is most of the people there spoke very good English, especially in the multinational companies. And again, multinationals were importing a lot of product from the United States, so they had training in English language skills. So in the foreign countries, like in Europe, I found that in addition to those 3 exposures, you'd have to have a fourth exposure, and that's getting it clearly delineated in their language, because words don't have the same meaning in each culture. So you're going through a translation element here from a German to an English, because the customer sometimes doesn't understand the English as well as we do, but they understand the German. So somebody's got to make that word translation there. And so that's certainly a dimension of that. And
Uh-huh.
then when you get to places like Asia, I found the language skills were much less, and you had to do it 5 times
Mm.
to explain the concept. And that is because the words didn't translate as well into English like they did in Europe.
Mm.
In Europe, for example, in Belgium or in Flemish countries, the Netherlands, if that word didn't exist in Dutch, they just use the English word,
Oh,
and all
okay.
of a sudden you hear a word and say, oh, I understand that one. It's an English word, because their language doesn't translate that word into anything else but this English component. So that
Okay.
becomes a part of the language. When
Mm.
you get to Asia, the problem was that the language didn't have even the same meaning. It had a word that didn't even translate from English to their language. And that was the reason for the 5th time. And by the
Mm.
time I discovered that, they say, well, we used to talk about just simple little things like the manufacturer of this product is such and such. And they'd always come and say, yeah, that maker is such and such. So they also use the term maker, not manufacturer.
Okay.
So this took several months of exposure into that culture before you really understand that a lot of words don't translate. So they're not really understanding the meaning of that word. And that's important when it comes to communications of your product, because what may be perceived as a very, very good, effective communications package in one country may be a total flop in another country. And that can happen
Mm.
also
Mhm.
in Europe to a lesser degree, but to Asia in a much greater degree.
Yeah.
And that's where you need to have some local language expertise. And you can see a lot of this with some of the young kids, with some of the jackets they have, with they're trying to take some of the American uh, headlines and so forth, and you put it on their jackets in just terrible English,
I've heard about this.
but in
Yeah.
their mind, that is their translation of that same saying in the United States.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
it's 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 a good example of the problems translation can have, and affects your communications and how you have to communicate with these people to get your message across. Even people within the company that know about the product, they still have differences in terminology that we need to understand,
Yeah.
and 5 times before it's starting to connect. But
Yeah.
it also has to relate to them and their environment that
Yeah.
they're selling in.
Yeah. So, there's a basically you're losing things in translation on a couple levels, right? One is simply a linguistic one, which is that you have to work harder to make sure your message is being, or that your message is coming across clearly uh, to someone who not only speaks another language, but really inhabits a different culture. And so it's like, America being, maybe a little closer to European culture. It's like even the words just kind of fit into that language better if you don't have a word for that. But but Japanese culture is going to be just different from American culture in more ways and probably more dramatically. And so, uh, the languages are just not going to interface nearly as well, which is why you have to work so much harder to communicate, is what you're saying. But then also there's these cultural things that we don't get, which is things like, oh yeah, vinegar. While I wouldn't necessarily seek out the smell of vinegar, I don't find it offensive. But you're saying in Japan, it's actually an offensive smell, and there's a value calculation that comes with that, right? Is what you're saying?
That's right. It's like a product can fail for reasons that you do not understand. So you need to test this in the eyes and get this information from the customer.
Yeah.
What does it look like and present itself in the customer's eyes? Because internally we could talk about these curing materials and they understood that. But when you talk to the customer, they don't understand that and they look at it and have a completely different concept of what that product implies to them, and it's very negative. And
Yeah.
that's the emotive side of selling. Every product has an emotive component, and that emotive component can work very favorable for you, like it did
Hmm.
in the United States. That's a clean smell, and that was make the product worth more. But it was very negative emotive when you got it into an Asian market where they says, I don't even want it. It's a very negative emotive, so it can kill the sales and value of your product.
Yeah. So, as an angel investor, and when you're, advising the companies that you're investing in or considering for investment, how does that help you facilitate that better, would you say?
Well, what I found is a lot of people say, wow, this global market is 5 times bigger than the US market. Let's go overseas as quick as we can. So their first thing is, let's start selling this product. And I says, no, you do not want to start selling your product overseas. You want to penetrate the market here in the United States, because you've just complicated your life by an order of magnitude when you start taking it outside the United States, because now you have all kinds of licensing requirements, you have legal requirements, you have to have a ability to sell, communicate in their language, etc. And accounts receivable and payables and all those sort of things, it's all different. So people want to go international too quick
Hmm.
instead of taking it a country at a time and expand upon it. You'll get there, but then you won't be making the mistakes of losing control over what
Yeah.
you're doing. Because what'll end up happening is you'll have the lowest cost product, and your sales price will not be as high as it could be because you aren't adding the value that they want to receive when they use your product.
Okay. Do you feel like you're constantly pushing your entrepreneurs to, uh, to look for these emotive, characteristics in the way that their products and services connect with customers?
We do, and that's a piece that's usually missing in most people's product offerings. They don't
Yeah.
appreciate they appreciate the economic basis of value.
Yeah.
And what that is, it says, all right, if you use my thing, you can cut your costs in half. So, all right, what does that mean to your product? Well, that means you can probably charge more, not double the product value, but maybe somewhere like 3/4, you could go higher, and that would be
Okay.
still a good deal for the customer and a
Right.
good deal for you. So you could get value on that
Yeah.
strictly on this uh, economic basis of value. Now you come back with this emotive thing. If it's a very negative thing on the thing, like it did with the caulks, it's worthless. It's zero. So there's an
Right.
emotive
Right.
value that has zero. In the
Yeah.
United States, it didn't really add to the value. It was okay. But
Yeah.
yet, if you get to some other products that a value is very high on an emotive basis, think in terms of perfume.
Yeah.
Those foreign products coming from France, the perfumes,
Hmm.
if they like the smell of the perfume and it's promoted right, that has a very high value. But if you don't like that smell, it's worthless.
Right.
So there's an emotive component of a very high level, but most products have a combination of both
Sure.
emotion
Yeah.
and economic basis of value.
Right, right. Yeah. Or problem solving, you might say. So
Hmm.
is the way I would say it. Yeah. So, and basically what you're saying is that Japanese example shows that, uh, it's like it may be a brilliant solution to the problem, but, but if people hate it, then, it's by definition no longer a brilliant solution to the problem. Right.
That's right. Yep.
Yeah. And then I would, I think you would probably also say that your planned innovation framework gives you ways to very precisely quantify that value, right?
That is exactly right.
Yeah.
You can get all that pinned down without spending the money to see if they'll buy. You can do all this work through the planned innovation protocol and do this in a matter of weeks for a lot less money than you can for building it and see if they'll come.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, I think that really acute understanding of how any product and service, it's a combination of solving a problem or maybe improving one's life, and then connecting with the customer emotively, like often in very subtle ways that people don't even realize, right?
Right.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah, there's a lot more value in this emotion part than people really understand.
Yeah.
Because if you don't have some of these pieces understood, then everybody wants to sell their product for the same price. But if
Hmm.
you have some particular benefits economically or emotionally, you
Yeah.
can get a superior performance and sales price on your
Right.
product. Take
Yeah.
more money to the bank,
Yeah.
greater return.
Yeah, I mean, you could quantify this. Let's just take, like Nike, the athletic shoe company. It's like, what value does Nike have, all things being equal, with, the way they are now? And then what if you took away that logo, that really dynamic, the swoosh they call it, and you just didn't have that logo, which has so much emotion with it. The value would most certainly be lower. And you would say planned innovation could actually help you quantify how much value is in the logo, right?
Exactly right. And now you take one additional component on there, says, well, what if Michael Jordan were wearing that
Right.
product? How much more in addition to the swoosh can you add value to it? Then you start getting into these multi-$100 pairs of shoes because
Yeah.
of that emotive component.
Very interesting. Yeah, because Michael Jackson, or no, sorry, not Michael Jackson, Michael Jordan.
Jordan, yeah.
Right, that'd be a different,
Yeah. Yeah.
calculation. But Michael
Right.
Jordan wearing those shoes, uh, is like that's a purely emotive form of persuasion, right?
Exactly right. The same product is there in for maybe half the price
Yeah,
with
right.
that same technology, or they may withhold that technology till after the endorsements are completed. Then they go
Yeah.
on to it.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's very interesting. So, Leon, this is what you bring. I've come to see to the Wisconsin River Business Angels, and really just your approach to everything is this really precise calculation about things that people don't, or often consider kind of amorphous and vague, but it's it strikes me that when we talk about the things that we love, we talk about our values, right? And we assume you can't put a number on these things, but then in another sense of that word, that's exactly what you're doing, is you're putting a number on it, when you say the valuation of something, and it strikes me
That
that's kind of where you play, is where those
Yeah,
two things
that's
come together.
exactly a spot on there, Aaron. And if you
Yeah.
don't have an understanding of the basis of value of your business, the economic and the emotive components,
Yeah.
you don't have a business
Right.
because you cannot quantify the the business to know whether you can make money at it or not. And if you just want to be a Me Too product, then you're essentially defeating yourself before you ever get started.
Yeah.
And you can be a Me Too product. How people typically want to play in that area is low cost. They want to be underpriced versus the competition. And they
Yeah.
make a mistake there because the competition has got 10 times, 100 times the volume throughput, and they can come right down and match your price and wipe you off the map
Yeah.
is one thing. So if you want to do it on a price basis, you better have technology that allows your cost to be about 1/10 their cost to manufacture that product. Then you can
Yeah.
play the price game. But
Yeah.
that's a very difficult thing to do with a young entrepreneurial company.
Yeah. Right. Okay. And then the alternative is that you put a value on the
By
emotive.
understanding in detail, and it's the
Yeah.
detailed understanding of the unmet need, and
Yeah.
it's the unmet need that is the basis of value.
Yeah. Okay. Very good. All right. Well, thank you, Leon.
You bet.
Fascinating and insightful conversation with Leon Ostrowski, the chair of the Wisconsin River Business Angels. That's Central Wisconsin's only angel investing group. My name is Aaron Marks, and this has been Angel Impact. I'll see you next time, everyone. Thanks for listening to Angel Impact, the official podcast of the Wisconsin River Business Angels. To learn more about the Wisconsin River Business Angels, visit the website at www.midwestwealthventures.com or find us on Facebook.